into some of the ideas around the lessons that we learn off our mothers. And, you know, thinking about my first point that I wanted to come up, what are the life lessons that we do learn from our mothers? You know, for me, something, all the persistence, the resilience, you know, some of the things where we, like I talked about my story earlier, the drive, the motivation to get up and go. If you think about it, my mother, I'm one of four, and there was four of us within 5 years of each other. Imagine dealing with 4 kids under 5.
Yeah, wow.
So I think I take, you know, I look at the parents now. I'm not a parent myself, but in terms of what they, you know, when you hear a mother of or a father of 1 or 2, and then I go, my mother did it with 4 kids, and I'm like, wow, that's incredible when you see what happens this day and age. So incredible what she went through, you know, taking us into sport events. My mother was very exceptional in the way of volunteering at the school. She ran a whole school fete on her own. Wow. Amazing. So she does do the get up and go. I know that about my mother. What kind of life lessons would you share, Tony, in terms of mothers, your mother or other people?
Well, so my mum, whilst my mum had 3 kids, I'm the eldest. I've got a sister who's a couple of years younger and a brother who's 7 years younger. But my mum was one of 10. So she was so my grandmother, who's passed now, so rest in peace, and both my grandmothers have. But my grandmother had 10 kids. Mum was third in line with 10. And so because she was one of the eldest, she actually had to bear the responsibility of then looking after the younger kids because there was such a gap between the eldest through to the youngest. So, you know, she learned at a very early age, you know, the maternal skills because she was thrust into that because, as you could appreciate, having 10 kids is an absolute handful. And so my mum being the third eldest, but the oldest girl, right? So she had 2 brothers older than her, but she was the oldest girl. And so she had to take on a lot of those, you know, additional maternal duties for the younger kids.
Yeah, it's amazing. So, you know, have a think about some of the life lessons, you know, for everyone in terms of our own mindsets that we can look towards from our mothers and really take on board for us. And I think that's what we really want to get out of today, Tony, is really understand what those people who are guiding us in life, what kind of life lessons in terms of whether they be positive or negative. There are some things that with people of an older generation that we don't kind of like, but there are some things that it was like amazing what they've gone through. And then even if we look about grandparents, if they went through the depression years and their resilience during that time. We go through a period now where we've had a recession, we've had periods of COVID, and, you know, tough time all the same, but is it as hard as going through world wars or depressions? And each and every person is going to treat it all differently.
I was listening to Tony Robbins, the other Tony, yesterday, actually. I was driving around listening to him, and he was talking about if you were born in 1910, now I may get the dates wrong, so please don't criticise me, but if you were born in 1910, when you were 20, right, you were walking into the greatest depression the world has ever seen, or certainly the modern world has ever seen. That's at the age of 20. At the age of 30, right, so that's now 1940 or 35, the world breaks out into a world war, right? So by the age of 35, you've gone through the greatest depression and you've gone through a world war. And it's interesting from a contextual point of view to go, well, okay, I'm not suggesting that things are easy, and certainly COVID's tough. And so, like, you know, poor old India, my gosh, you know, that's devastating, you know, what's going on over there. But everyone has their shit. Everyone has their stuff, right? That generation had their stuff. We've got our stuff. We know better, no worse. But the point is that everybody's got their stuff, and it's about what you do with that stuff. So bad stuff, we talked about this last Saturday, and I talk about it all the time. Bad stuff happens to all of us, right? I haven't got long enough to talk about all the bad things that have happened to me. And certainly, you know, 2020 was a horrible year for me. But I have a choice. I have a choice. That the choice is I can have that beat me. I can have that, you know, hold me down, paralyze me, prevent me from doing anything, or I can deal with it and I can grow from it and I can, learn resilience. And I know we're going to talk about resilience in a moment, but I can experience that to build the muscle. Resilience is a muscle. You don't learn resilience from reading a textbook. You don't learn resilience from watching a YouTube clip. You actually experience resilience because you're building a muscle, because you've gone through something.
Very interesting, Tony. Moving along to ideas about what we can learn from their resilience. In terms of our mothers, what would you say?
Well, Mum's, as I mentioned before, Mum is uber competitive, right? Never, ever give up, right? She's a worker. She comes from an era where, as I just said, she had to shoulder a lot of the responsibility. They lived, they didn't, but Mum and Dad never were born into wealth. So they had to work. They had to walk to school and walk a long way to school. And Mum had to look after kids at a young brothers and sisters at a young age. And so just absolute. She's a worker, competitive, as I said. She is at 71 last year playing pickleball. My gosh! And here's the thing. She's waiting for her wrist to get stronger so she can go back. Like she's itching to get back. So, which is fantastic. She wants to get back out there. So we're all saying to her, just hang on, just slow it up a little bit, Mum. But she's itching to get back out there. So it's certainly those things. And as I said, just absolute kindness. Like just really be kind to others and treat people how you want to be treated. And that's something that both me and as I said, my brother and sister were very fortunate to take that. And we pass that on. I pass that on. With my kids as well, because it's important. There's some people don't always treat people the way that they'd like to be treated, and we constantly. I've had that, inbred in me, and I look to do the same with my children.
I think a big one for me is she might not appreciate the way I say this, but I think with my mother, it's about get shit done. And for her, she kind of likes to get up early in the morning, get everything out of the way and done. The walk. The cleaning, the cooking, and she'll be all done by about 7 a.m. So the rest of the day is all free and clear.
Yeah.
I guess she didn't have that choice back when she was, when she had the four of us under 5 years old, and it was a constant for her. But it was always, even though we had 4 kids under 5 making a mess all through the house was always spotless. It was just amazing how she would just get shit done. And you can see that resilience time in, time out. I don't know. I can't even remember when my mother was ever sick. Like, I don't even remember her being on the couch and just like, vegging out or anything like that. Like maybe at night time, like in front of the TV where we would all watch TV. But, other than that, like I just don't recall those times because it was always cooking, washing, hanging clothes on the line, ironing, all these things that were happening throughout the house. And I guess as kids, you often do take these things for granted.
Well, when we were young, Luke, I remember, Mum, we got our first house back in Gympie. So we would have been about, I would have been 6 or 7, I think it was. And anyway, we got a home, a little 6-acre block outside of Gympie, and Mum would work all the day at the house, and then she'd work at night at KFC. So back then, Kentucky Fried Chicken had come to town, and that was a big thrill. We never had a Macca's growing up. We had a KFC, so that was really exciting, and Mum worked there. And so Mum would basically, her and Dad would pass like ships in the night. Dad would get home from work, sort of 4:35ish, and he'd take us and he'd look after us, and then Mum would head off to her part-time job, and so that's how she lived. And then Mum and Dad, she'd come home from a shift with the leftover chicken, and they'd sit up late at night and chew down on some, on a wing or a thigh or whatever, the leftover chicken that wasn't sold. And quite often we'd get that in the lunchbox, which is fantastic. So I was a real king of the kids when I was little because I'd have a nice little, nice bit of, Kentucky Fried Chicken sitting in the lunchbox waiting for us. So it was great. But, she's a worker, and again, that came from her younger years. And I think today a lot of the kids have a sense of entitlement, whereas for her, there was no choice. I go back to the story you said about your mother, cleaning the house before 7. That's called don't procrastinate. That's called just rip the Band-Aid off and get stuff done. Like you said, GSD. Whereas for a lot of us, we'll keep kicking that can down the road and, I'll get to that later, I'll get to that later. And of course, you have a million and one stories going on. Whereas for your mother, clearly it's a case of, I just want to get this done. And even if it's a case of, if she doesn't like having a house that's out of place or whatever her motive is, doesn't matter. But it's like get in and get stuff done. And there's so much you could learn from that.
Yeah, definitely. Tony, what do you do through the tough times? Like our parents would have gone through some tough situations. And I know that there was, through my siblings, there was some incidents at schools and things like that.
Yeah.
And I do remember, again, it was get shit done. She transferred, siblings from schools and, restructured everything. And so even in the tough times, it would just seem so seamless. Like, maybe they just weren't very open with us about what was going on. They were just like, okay, this is happening and let's get on with it.
So a good example for me is when they sent me away to boarding school. So going away to a private boys' boarding school was incredibly expensive, and it wasn't monies that we had lying around. And that was a massive commitment for mum and for dad, obviously. That was a huge commitment, and they made that. My brother and sister didn't go to boarding school. I went to boarding school because I got booted out of the school I was in. And so, it's a case of they sacrificed for me to go to that particular school. And, I'm forever grateful for that. Learned some wonderful things there. And then, they sacrificed again to send me to university, and I just ran amok at university, but they just kept sacrificing for me and for my sister to go as well. And, it's those things to me that are just so powerful, and you do them, right? You do that as a parent now. I get it. At the time, I wasn't as appreciative as I am now. And I think going through being a parent has really opened my eyes up to how amazing, both my parents, let's talk about mum today, how amazing my mum, was as a parent. I was too stupid and naive to appreciate it at the time.
Yeah, I imagine for like a lot of mothers out there, whether there's been issues with health, with, things inside the family, whether there's been job losses, whether been financial strain, there's so many things that I guess parents need to go through. But, we were reflecting on mothers today about some of the tough times. And, often we talked about their resilience, their determination and everything. And reflecting on that is what kind of lessons can we individually bring out of that? How can we help our mindsets around this, Tony? And this is a strong one for us to really, on these days where we're celebrating about our mothers, and even to the fact of those two key questions that you ask each and every day. Mm-hmm. And what are they, Tony? What have you done well? And what can you do differently?
You've done well, mate. You've done well.
Yeah, I've been listening for a while. Just only 100 episodes.
100 episodes. We got there.
Absolutely. So they're a big one for us to just realize some of these things and just reflect on some of these things at these times. So while you're listening today, think about some of the life lessons that you've learnt from your mother. Think about the resilience that they had. Think about how they adapted during those tough times, how they were able to make those change. Anything that you would like the audience, as we wrap it up for today, Tony, to really reflect on?
Well, I wanted to reflect on a mother who's not my mother, but she's the mother of my two kids. And she's the Nicole, again, I know you won't be watching, but she's the backbone of our family without question. And she has enabled me to go off and live the life of an entrepreneur, and it hasn't been easy for her. We made that decision a long time ago, and there was a number of commitments that I made to her that life would be different, and in some areas it is, and in some areas it isn't. But for her, she has enabled me to go and do that, and she has absolutely kept our family going. She and I made a decision when the kids were young that she would take on that role. She had a very good job, a very sort of middle management job with McDonald's, and we decided that she would look after the kids, and so she's dropped kids off and picked kids up, and she has really put her career on hold for the betterment of our children. And I just wanted to say to her that I'm so appreciative of what you've done for our little family. It wouldn't be where it is today without you. And she's an amazing mother.
Well said, Tony. I
Thank
think
you.
for in terms of my mother, it's just all those little things that she does that you do, like you do realize, and the older we get, the more we realize about it. Some of those cooked meals that just come over, some of those things that, little gifts and things like that do happen at different times. It might be that phone call, or just the fact that she's, for my mother, she's watching today, and being a big part of the support of me being an entrepreneur as well. Like me going through the different tough times that you do have as running your own business. So the support that she does give me, whether she's telling friends and other family members about what I'm doing and what I'm creating, which is amazing. And that support is just first class. So
and it's unconditional. That's the thing as well. It's unconditional support. And my mum and dad have been through the good times, the bad times of what we've been through, and it's just that unconditional support, unconditional love. And I am and will be forever grateful for that from Mum. And so, Mum, I know I won't see you today, but we'll talk obviously. But I hope you have a wonderful time. She's a grey nomad. She's got the caravan on the back, and her and Dad are down in Victoria somewhere as we speak. So I know they're going to have a great day together, and we'll speak to her a bit later on.
Fantastic, Tony. Well, this is a really good session today. I'm so glad that it's worked out to be the 100th session of the Sunday Mindset session.
We planned it that way, remember?
We absolutely planned it that way. It was our intention from day one to get to 100, yeah, for sure, and it to land on Mother's Day in 2021. Absolutely. I don't even know the date we started, so.
Neither do I. But again, I just want to say, if we could just shift off the mums just for a second and talk about that you talk about resilience, you talk about consistency, you talk about keep going. This is what you do with your running. You're up to 1,230 something, but I mean, it's a case of just keep going. 100 episodes of this. When we first started, we didn't have any grandiose plans. We never sat down there, contrary to what Luke said, we never sat down there and talked about, let's have 100 episodes. We just did one thing. We got a bit of positive feedback, so that's pretty cool. Let's do it again and do it again. And here we are, some 100 episodes later. And so for everybody out there, it's about just taking that one step, just starting with whatever it is that you want to do. Doesn't matter what it is. You don't have to go and do, Facebook Lives. It could just be exercise. It could be reading a book. It could be whatever, but just do one thing. Progress is always, always, always better than perfection. And my new saying, which I'll be saying a lot of, which is consistency beats intensity. So it's write that one down, mate. But it's so true, and you're an example of that, right? So if you think about the runs that you do, you are consistent with your runs. Yes, you do some at a super high pace, but you get through it, right? There'll be days when you don't feel like it, and as long as you get through it, that's the main thing. Whereas a lot of people have intensity. It's called the January the 1st syndrome, and they have intensity at for the first 2 weeks of the year. And then, of course, it all goes to custard around the middle of January, as opposed to if they just were consistent with things, slow and steady wins the race, then they would have a far different outcome.
Gabby says, thanks, guys. Great session. Great discussion today. Ken Murray says, well done, Tony and Luke. Great achievement. Ken also said earlier, less haste and more speed. I'm not sure what that was referring to, but I missed that comment earlier, so apologies to Ken. Tony, it's been a great one. Happy Mother's Day to all the mothers out there. And let's continue to work on our mindsets each and every day, but especially on Sundays where we chime into what the week ahead is going to look like for us.
Absolutely. Fantastic. Enjoy the Mother's Day, all the mums. Thank you, Luke. 100 episodes. Yay, yay, yay. Woo! See you next week. Bye, guys.
Put up the bat, Don Bradman style. Yes.
The people here are laughing at me. So
that's so good. That's so good. Why don't you flash over to them? Let's see them.
Yeah, they're all laughing at me.
I love it.
I think who was this guy in the park raising his arms? Eh?
See ya, Tony. Bye.